Hello, everybody, and welcome along. I'm going to start that again because you glitched.
It's all right.
It's all right. Hello, everybody, and welcome along to episode 6 of season 3 of the A Game of Two Halves podcast. I'm your host, Sean Watson. Joining me once again from Southport is Kieron Dobson, but for the first time this week, we're happy to welcome onto the show friend of the show, James Martin, Manchester City fan. How are you, James?
Hi guys, thanks for having me. All
well,
good.
Welcome along. Thanks for coming along. Hope you're strapped in and ready for this show tonight. I think Kieran's got a few things to say on your beloved Manchester City, so it'd be interesting to get your thoughts on a couple of things. We've got a lot to talk about, but thanks for coming on. It's been a long time coming. I hope you enjoy it.
Yeah, no worries. I love the timing of it. When City are sitting below United for the first time in 7 years or something.
Yeah, exactly. You know what? I text Kieran, and Kieran was like, "It's a great time to get James on. Let's do it." So
you didn't fancy getting me on after we won back-to-back titles or domestic treble? Oh, let's get him on now.
Yeah, let's kick him while he's down.
It was either now or after the Lyon game last year. But...
No, we pick our moments on that's editorial dictatorship that we've got going on. We can pick and choose our moments, James. That's just how it is, I'm afraid. No, but you're good sport. Thanks for coming along. So whilst we've got you here, we're going to sort of dedicate the first half really to Manchester City and get your take on everything going on at the club right now. Sort of they're in a bit of a state of flux, but Guardiola signed a new 2-year deal. Sort of just sum up their sort of first 8-9 games of the season and where you think they are and where they need to improve.
It's been a struggle this season, and I was making excuses for it the other day. I was putting it down to sort of the two midfield with Gundogan and Rodri, but I think the problems do lie a bit deeper than that. Pep likes to use the excuse of no pre-season and
don't we? Kieran likes that excuse as well.
All that, but everyone's in the same boat, so that's not really washing with me or a lot of City fans. I still think it was the right decision to renew Pep's contract. You can't get rid of him based off what he's done over sort of the last year was really his first failure. His first season can't really count that because he was just settling in.
Yeah.
So last year was his first failure, but yeah, this season there's sort of a lot of problems. Should I go ahead and list them?
Please do. That's why we've asked you along. We sort of enjoy doing the post-mortem a little bit, so you run through them and we'll have a good laugh.
Yeah. So I think our build-up play it's just not what it used to be. I think Micah Richards nailed it on Sky Sports the other day when he said used to have sort of De Bruyne, Silva, Fernandinho running the midfield. Now you've got Rodri, Gundogan, and then going forward you've got Mahrez, Torres, and it's just not the same. You used to have Sane as well. In terms of replacing players, we've not really replaced Sane. We've not replaced David Silva. Definitely not.
Is it a case with Silva? I'm not saying you didn't know what you had when you had him, but now he's not there. It's a real sort of glaring omission when you can see him not there anymore.
Yeah, he was people say he's our best player ever.
He is.
He was definitely our most consistent. He was top quality every single game. And you look at Real Sociedad now, the top of the league in La Liga. So it just shows the impact he has. So yeah, we are missing David Silva, but not only that, I don't think Pep trusts his replacement. So his replacement, he said for the past year in every interview, we won't be signing a replacement. We're getting in because we've got Phil Foden. Right. But he's not even playing Phil Foden in that position. He's playing him out on the wing because he doesn't trust him to do the David Silva role, which might be right. He's more of a direct player. David Silva was sort of slowed the play down a lot more. Foden's more of a goal scorer, really.
Yeah.
And then you've got Bernardo Silva, who hasn't been the same player for about 18 months now.
Strange one, isn't it, Bernardo? Because Pep sort of trusted him for a good while. He was one of the first names on your team sheet for a good, at least a season there, and he's sort of gone out of favour a little bit.
Yeah, so the second season, we won the league with Pep. He was player of the season, player of the season, fans player of the season. He was unstoppable, and he was playing in that midfield role. But now he's just seemed to be a lot less direct. It's almost if against Spurs the other day, I was hoping to bring in Bernardo in that midfield role because I was like thinking of old times and how he played there and take off Gundogan because Gundogan slowed it down. But Bernardo was just as slow. He was just as indirect. It was just sideways passes. He was just playing safe. And it's not what you want to see. You want to see sort of the forward direct passes that we saw under Pep in the second and third season.
Yeah.
So I think the midfield is a problem. I also think the inverted wingers, which we insist on playing, is a problem. Mahrez has been useless all season.
Yeah.
Most of last season, he has the odd good game where one of his dribbles comes off and he bangs it in the top left or bottom left. But he's the most frustrating City player I've seen in a long time. Is he? He's just. Yeah, his crosses are aimless. He just runs at defenders, loses it, dribble. He's very greedy. Something came out in the press a few weeks ago about De Bruyne having a go at him for never passing, and he denied it on Twitter. But
so it's interesting you say that because I know Kieron's sort of the same ilk here, but we always rate Mahrez. Maybe it's from a point of view that isn't a City fan point of view. It's always different when it's your own team. You look at it in a different way, and the spotlight's a little bit more intense. But what do you sort of say to that, Kieron?
Well, yeah, I was
just to bring you in
there. No, I was dying to jump in on that point because we have been big fans of Mahrez. He's so aesthetically pleased as a footballer. But just to go off what James said there, he points to the fact that KDB and him seems to have a little bit of a tiff. But Mahrez hasn't played over the last 3 years that much on, he hasn't played as many games as you would think a player that you signed for that amount of money would do. And I think a lot of that is because De Bruyne at his absolute best is great in that sort of, approaching the final third on the right because he can play those like quick crosses, first time crosses. And I remember when we had this issue with Van Persie and Rooney when they played together. Van Persie would always say that players were getting into his zone, and I feel like whilst Mahrez is, he's got a lot of talent, I do think that he eats sort of off Kevin De Bruyne's plate a little bit in that when he's coming in on that left foot, defenders are well set then because they know that if he's crossing, he's going to curl it inward, and they know that De Bruyne's there looking to try and play a similar ball into the same danger zone from that area. So you're sort of getting doubled up by defenders when those two play together and De Bruyne wants to drift out to that right side. So there's been a lot of, as you say, again, I'll quickly summarise, but just to say it's been a lot of player turnover the last couple of years with Man City. And some of the players that were there before Pep was there, like the core, your David Silvers, obviously we were talking last week, Kompany's gone, Aguero's out at the minute. There's a lot of change going on with that 11 that he's picking every week, and it's causing chaos because I think he's trying to figure out which players fit with which at the minute. And again, we talk about that midfield. You're saying about the game being slowed down when Bernardo comes in and drops into midfield, where he's previously shown he's got the ability. Well, again, that was probably when he had David Silva there as well, who he could interplay with. Again, I would not. City, I'll quickly summarise here. City obviously have got a top class squad, an excellent 11.
Is it still the best squad in the league?
Squad, yeah, I'd say.
Because we've always said it's been better than Liverpool's squad. They're famously thin.
I would. You shaking your head there, James? Do you disagree?
No, I agree. It's the best squad. I don't think it's the best starting 11 though.
I agree with that.
Just look at Liverpool's front three. It's just so much superior to ours.
Even 4 now, you chuck Jota in there as well. He scored again tonight.
I think I said on Facebook the other day, if we had a Salah in our team, just a deadly finisher, or a Son, I think we'd score a lot more goals than we do. We've got Sterling playing on the left, and he gets into them pockets so many times. and wastes so many chances. He scores a lot of goals, but he wastes so many chances. I don't think a player like Son or Salah would do that in our team.
Do you rate Sterling as a? I know obviously we've spoken about his figures on this show, and his figures are obviously exceptional. Do his figures sort of, I don't know, is he faking it a little bit with his figures? Is he as good as a player as his figures suggest he is?
I think it's with Sterling, it's not really about his goal scoring, because he does do a lot for the team. Yeah. He does do a lot in build-up play, runs in behind, get into the byline, and that does create chances. Is a lot of his goals. He's not a tapping merchant, but a lot of his goals have been sort of goals which have been put on a plate for him by De Bruyne or
Foden,
David Silva, Foden, yeah. So I wouldn't say his stats lie to him, because he's he could be doing better than he actually is.
Yeah.
I just think he's a quality player, but he's just not a finisher.
I agree, and I think, like you say, the losing Sané and replacing him with what looks like, somebody like Ferran Torres at this stage, it's not a direct replacement, but you haven't really directly replaced Sané in terms of quality, and that does seem to be a big miss. I know he didn't play last season a great deal, but when the best City team that I've seen was the 100-point season, and he was so good in that season.
Yeah, and it's having, simple as it is, it's having a left foot on the left, a right foot on the right. Sané on the left, Sterling on the right. It can break down them sort of 5-man defences that seem to always play against us.
Yeah, because if you've got it the other way, it's cutting inside, it's narrowing the pitch up.
It is, and I can't remember what game it was now, but we have played that this season once for half a game. I feel like it was in the Champions League against Porto. We played Sterling on the right wing, Foden on the left wing, and we were a couple of goals ahead at half time. And it just looked so much better. And then second half, we brought Mahrez on, put him on the right wing, and we got another goal. And they asked Pep about it in the interview after, and they asked him about, why don't you play that formation all the time with the left foot on the left, right foot on the right? And he was like, he pointed out that we got a goal in the second half from Mahrez on the right. So he's stubborn in that way, which he likes his inverted wingers. And
it's the fashion, isn't it, now? Every team plays like that almost. You do see United play it with Greenwood on the right as a left footer and Rashford on the left as a right footer. It has been that way for quite a few years. But Kieron, would you like to see sort of a move back to, at least some of the time, a bit of variety, and move back to the old-fashioned left footer on the left, right footer on the right?
Honestly, no. Not to dismiss what James just said there, but because this is a conversation I had in another WhatsApp group over the weekend. I do hear where you come from. Again, it is good to mix it up as well. I think, Porto in that game wouldn't have been preparing for Sterling to be on the right. But I think that the main issue with City, where Sterling's concerned at the minute, personally, is that Cancelo is playing at left back and he's right-footed too. And again, I'm saying this from experience as a fan. I used to rant on the early editions of this podcast about we would have Martial and Rashford coming off the left wing with, wanting to cut in onto the right foot. And we'd have Ashley Young at left back wanting to do the exact same thing. And if you're a defender, it makes your job simple. You know where the danger is coming from every time. Neither of the two players want to cut in onto the left foot or want to try and dribble around you that way. They always want to cut in onto the right. And it just makes everybody that's defending against a team that's got two players coming at the same angle, or both trying to attack in the same direction, easy. You just need to shut down one channel. I do think that, again, City have been unlucky in the respect that, Mendy's been injured and, some of the signings that they've made haven't really worked out. And I think they even did try Aki at left back at one point. Am I right in saying that? There was a game.
Yeah, he played there early in the season, but he's not going to get up and down the pitch like that.
Yeah. In the modern era is what you've got to do. Your fullbacks have got to attack. And I think a lot of the trend in basically your attackers cutting in onto their foot inside for a shot is about opening up that channel for the wing backs. Liverpool do it excellently because they've got Trent and Robertson are both excellent crosses, as Robertson showed tonight. But again, for that City team, again, I was talking about on the right-hand side with Mahrez and De Bruyne both playing, you know where the danger's coming from that angle. It's quite easy for the defence to sort of shut that down. It's the same on the other side, but you've got Cancelo who's also wanting to look to do the same thing. That's what I see anyway. I don't know, but I think City's problems go a little bit deeper. And I hope you don't mind me sort of hijacking this a little bit and throwing the cat amongst the pigeons. Just that one of the things we've recently introduced, James, I don't know if you've seen, is Kieron's hot take, because I have so many hot zingers that people need to hear. But I just want to throw it out there now, because it's going to sound weird if we just chuck it on at the end.
So is this Kieron's hot take, just to confirm?
This is it now.
So
yeah.
It's time for this week's Kieron's hot take.
And then the music plays, and then I come in and I say, Pep Guardiola is a fraud.
So you're gonna have to expand. We'll let you.
I don't feel like I need to justify it at this point. No, what I'll say. So going back to what I was saying earlier, right? The City team, as we said, I think this is probably the best squad in the league. Again, I completely agree. It's not the best starting 11. I don't think you can pick the best starting 11 as long as Liverpool have got enough fit players. They will. But I think that Pep, what he's shown in his career is that he's an absolutely top tier coach, one of the best coaches of all time. He does improve players. He always brings something else to the game. I think some of the... Say again?
Well, he's a fraud.
Yeah. 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 So again, it's going to sound crazy because I think he's one of the best coaches in the world. But what I don't think he's very good at is identifying some of the flaws in his team and doing the right things in the transfer market to remediate it. And some of the things that have been coming a long way now for City, Company, David Silva, Aguero, Fernandinho, Sane leaving, which they knew was coming. Those questions haven't been answered. And you look at the money that's been spent. City did have the best team in the league, I think, at one point. I think the more time he's had to build this squad, the further away this team have got from being able to say that. And I think if the Champions League is what, I do think that is the reason you bring Pep in. Obviously, you take the Premier Leagues, all the domestic cups, which he's won a lot of, but really it was about winning the Champions League. And you look at his record there now, did excellently with Barcelona, which I always say I think is the best squad I've ever seen and probably the best starting 11. I think maybe I'll say that when I die, that was the best team I've ever seen. But he took over a treble-winning Bayern Munich side, couldn't get to the semis. And then you look at the City side, and again, he gets to the latter stages and he overthinks things, and he just seems to panic and worry too much about being outdone tactically. I don't think he'll ever cross that bridge with City. That's my hot take.
James, you want to respond to what you've just heard there?
Yeah, I disagree.
Thought you might.
I think we'll go back to Barcelona, start off there. When he came into that team, he didn't inherit the team that he won all them trophies with. He came in, he had Deco, I think Ronaldinho, and he dropped them both straight away, which is a big call. Barcelona fans were fuming with him. Got rid of them both. Brought Busquets up from the reserves, I think it was, Barcelona B, and he sort of completely invented a new way of playing football, and won sort of 6 trophies in a season, I think it was. Yeah, he had Messi, Xavi, Iniesta, which again
might have helped. Yeah, might have helped.
That list can go on as well.
It can.
To interrupt, but that list can go on.
Puyol, Valdez, Dani Alves.
Yeah, and I think when he took over at Bayern Munich, had they won the treble the previous season?
Yeah, Jupp Heynckes won the treble the year he took over the summer after.
2012-13. I think 2012 they won the Champions League at Wembley, didn't they? So that would have been the year. Or was it 2013? 2013, because Chelsea won it the year before.
I don't know the dates, I'll be honest.
Yeah. Anyway, continue.
Anyway, I'm pretty sure he won the league every year at Bayern Munich, which you can say is easy, but not every Bayern Munich manager's done that.
No, that's true.
And then he took over a City team. I think we were 4th in the league that season he took over. And he says he has spent a lot of money, which he has, but he had to. We had sort of Bakary Sagna and Kolarov, who were 30, 32, 33 as our fullbacks. So we had to buy fullbacks.
Have you got any better at fullback, though? Since
we've still not replaced Kolarov. We bought Mendy, and we're sort of hoping that he comes good. But obviously he's injury problems, and even when he's not injured, he's looked no good. Yeah. So personally, I would have replaced him. But you say about Pep's transfers, I don't think they are Pep's transfers that are bringing in. I think it is the board. It's cheeky. I know he'll have some say on who he wants, but we don't seem to be getting them.
So let me ask you this then, James. If in 2 years' time, after Guardiola's deal expires and he doesn't renew, and that's the end of Guardiola at City, if you haven't won the Champions League, has he failed?
No, definitely not.
It's interesting.
I feel like the domestic trophies, and I know a lot of opposite fans do judge us off whether we're going to win the Champions League. But
it's the holy grail for you, isn't it? As a club.
Yeah, it is. And I think we will win it one day. I don't know if it'll be in the next 2 seasons. Probably won't be. But I it's coming. It's not something that I wake up thinking we need to win the Champions League this year. I'd rather win the Premier League, and a lot of City fans are the same.
Really?
The domestic trophies do come first.
That's interesting, because I didn't think you'd say that. Being the one trophy you've yet to win, that would be the be all end all for me at this stage. But it's interesting you've got that point of view.
But in the next 2 seasons, I don't think it is. Say renewed after that and made 3 or 4 seasons, and he's still not won the Champions League, then yeah, maybe. He has won 2 Champions League though, which is the same as Alex Ferguson.
That is true. Yeah, that is true.
Is it a fraud as well?
No, well. All right, Kieron, same question to you then. If Guardiola leaves City in 2 years' time without a Champions League under his belt, has he failed?
Yeah, so my hot take is that he's a fraud. As I say, I'm not that sharp on him. I do think he's done an excellent job, and I don't think that you could say he's failed, just because, again, to be fair, it wasn't a given that he would come in and win. I think they won, a domestic treble back-to-back or something along those lines. Or if they didn't, it was close. I think he won, was it 3 League Cups in a row? Again, I might be exaggerating. Say again.
I think it's 4 now.
Yeah, I'm not gonna. So he's done a really good job, and you're gonna look at the trophies he's won and say he's done a good job, as you might do, this time at Bayern, and obviously as you would at Barca. But I do think that it's obvious that it is while it might not be for James, I do think for the City owners it probably is, and I don't think they're going to get close to sacking him if he doesn't come close in the next year or so. Obviously he's just signed that extension, but I have to say again, you say that he didn't inherit the squad at Barca, but the young team, the core of that team was there. The Puyol, PK coming back, Busquets was there, and he knew him, granted, and yeah, he starts to promote him, but I mean, he was a player that's obviously high quality player. Iniesta, Xavi, Pedro is an unforgotten one, David Villa. It's he had all the tools at his disposal, same at Bayern and same at the City, and with all the resources that you've had, I'm not saying that he should have won it by now, because I do think it's a lottery, the Champions League. Like, it's a knockout cup, and because there's so many top quality teams, and I think the other disadvantage English clubs have, this is my defence of Ferguson as well here, which fair enough, I'm going to jab back, but the English teams do have a bit of a nightmare, because I do think no matter what anyone says, it is a more competitive league, the Premier League, and you've got to finish in the top 4. You're very rarely wrapping up the season early like you would be in France or Germany. and has been done on occasion in Italy and Spain. And so I think that's always going to work in the favour of these other clubs. But I do think City and Bayern should have come an awful lot closer. And the one real defence I think that anyone could level to say that, Pep isn't a fraud. And I only say he's a fraud because I think everyone says he's the best manager in the world. I don't think he is, because I think at the minute you'd give that to Klopp, but obviously he's in that top conversation. But I think the one defence you could level is to say that, how many times has Messi won it since Pep at Barca?
Falls down to one.
One, yeah, the Neymar year.
Yeah.
And fair enough. Barca haven't been great since Pep left, but again, I do just think it's fair to expect more from the City team. I know you alluded to at the start of the podcast, James, that there's Pep's got the excuse that the lack of preseason. I genuinely do believe in that. I think if you look at us, yourselves, Wolves, we've looked slow. Found it really difficult to show any level of intensity on the ball and off it. I don't think that's a coincidence, but again, I'm talking about the last few years. I would expect to see more of a fight. You should have beat Lyon. You should have won that game.
So James, why do you think that you haven't progressed further than you have in the Champions League so far under Guardiola? Kieron sort of alluded to the fact that Pep maybe overthinks it sometimes in the big games, but some of the draws you've had, it looks to have been there for you to get to the semis and beyond, and even to a final. Why do you think it's not happened?
No, I think you've nailed it there in saying he does overthink. He does overthink the quarterfinals. It's happened every season. I think the first year we went out was to Monaco. I think that was on goal difference.
Yeah, 5-3 at home, wasn't it?
Yeah, won the first game 5-3, and we should have just shut up shop, and we didn't in the second leg. Second year, was it against Liverpool?
Liverpool, then Spurs, and then Lyon, wasn't it?
Yeah, I've tried to blank the Liverpool game out of my memory, to be fair, so I can't even comment on that. I think the Spurs game, I remember the first leg, we completely just didn't go for it. I think we missed a penalty. Second leg, we went out. It was a chaos game. It was 2-2 after about 20 minutes.
One of the best games I've ever seen, that second game.
Probably the best game I've ever been to live, definitely. Especially the first half. It was just chaos, end to end, obviously with a horrible ending. So we all thought we won it. But if you look at each season, we've been close each season. It's been one goal in it. Last season, Lyon, we still only have scored that open net, we would have gone through. It's just fine margins in it. My battery's about to go. 1 second.
No, it's fine. Don't worry. It is fine margins, Kieron, just while James is away. It is, but if you're always on the wrong side of that fine margin, then it sort of negates the luck side of it, doesn't it? If you're always finding yourself on the wrong side of the draw, then there's obviously a deeper lying reason to that.
Yeah, and for me, again, I think that'd be a fair argument if City weren't favourites, probably in all four of those.
Yeah.
Because I think, maybe the Liverpool that one they weren't, but I remember, I don't know if you remember this, James, but I was adamant you were going to batter Liverpool.
I remember that.
I was convinced that you were going to do them, but I was sitting with you wanting City to beat Liverpool there.
Did we all watch that game together?
I left very quickly. I don't know if you remember. I wasn't enjoying it.
Yeah. I remember you being there for a bit of it, Kieron. But why did you? I don't know. It doesn't matter. But that game was, again, it's madness, wasn't it?
We just bottle it at Anfield every season. We've not won there since 2003.
Is that right?
Nicholas Elka, I think, 1-0 sort of towards the end of the game. So It's just we're never going to win there. The day we do win there, it'll be
maybe that'll change things around when eventually that does happen.
It's I don't know what it is. We just seem to bottle it every single year.
Yeah.
We had our chance last season in the league. I think we were the better team, and then Mahrez obviously missed that penalty in the last minute.
Spoke about that last week, didn't we?
Season 4 last, sorry. Last season in the league, I think we were very unlucky again.
Yeah.
I think we should have had a couple of penalties. You remember the Pep doing the two?
Yeah.
That's the second week in a row that's been done on this programme.
Really?
Remember that.
But yeah, Liverpool always seem to do us over at Anfield, which is a shame.
Yeah, it is the holy grail for City, and it'll be interesting to see how the next 2 years do pan out. I said to Kieron over text this week, I was a little bit gutted that Guardiola did sign on because I thought him staying would be a good thing for City and so by default a bad thing for United fans. But Kieron was of sort of a different opinion that whilst he's there, they're never going to do the unthinkable and win the Champions League. So it depends which side of the coin you do want to look at it. But there's what I would say is they're a long way from it as of right now. You know, there's a lot of holes in that City team, and I don't want to sit here smugly saying that because we're no better. You know, it's not like we're top of the league and running away with it either. But this is as beatable as I've seen City in probably 7 or 8 years since you won the league for the first time.
Yeah, definitely. I think we're about 4 players away. I'd say a left back. I'd say a proper David Silva replacement who can not only go forward with the ball but can hold it in the way Gundogan does with the sideways passes, but also the direct passes.
Yeah.
I think we're a winger away.
You want to talk about Rodri?
We can talk about Rodri. I don't think he's as good as well, it's obviously he's not as good as Fernandinho.
No.
In the way that he's defensively, really, the way that Fernandinho could slow down an attack, pick up the ball, and play the ball forward.
Know when to foul, pick up the odd yellow card.
Yeah,
smart defending.
He was just a lot faster in the way. And Rodri, which I guess is why Pep's played him in a 2 with Gundogan, and it showed against Spurs when we lose the ball, they look deadly on the counter attack. Whereas if we have Fernandinho in there, we will be slowing it down.
Yeah, there is no counter attack with Fernandinho in there. He'll cut them off at the source and trip them on the edge of their own box, won't he? That's the beauty of Fernandinho. Kieron, what do you think of Rodri?
Yeah, no, so I've been saying for a few weeks now, I've been saying privately for a while, I'm not a big fan of Rodri. I think Pep, my guess is that he sees sort of like a Busquets 2.0 in him. But I don't. I think the game sometimes passes him by. I think sometimes he looks too slow, too stiff, too rigid. And I think I sometimes watch and I think I don't know what value he brings when you're on the ball either. I don't see him do enough. I think obviously the drop off from Fernandinho is steep at the moment. But what I would say, and I do think all those things. I do also think that I said this about Fred a couple of years ago, and this is to say that it's going to get dramatically better because Sean's still not a big fan of Fred, but I do think that players that come into the Premier League from another division particularly midfielders, take about a year or so to really find themselves. I think the game is just different. It moves. I know, a lot of people say, well, the Spanish league's a lot more technical and actually the ball moves quicker, but there isn't really anything like the Premier League. You have to be, you've got to be physically, athletically, and so much quicker, and then on the ball. I think the technical side, I think it's pretty standard across Europe now. I do just think in the Premier League things just move quicker and there's a lot more aggression, and I do think it takes midfielders who are used to having not more time on the ball, but just more options for them. I think in the Premier League sometimes players will look and they have to go backwards, and I see that a lot with defensive midfielders that come in. So I'm not completely writing him off, but right now it doesn't look like was it 60 million for Rodri as well? Am I inflating that?
What to do with that? Somewhere around there, yeah.
It's in that ballpark, isn't it? And that's the thing. When you spend that amount of money on a player, typically speaking, you would think that that's a player that you've identified and you think that's the answer. And obviously, we know in modern era that's not always the case. There's no club in the world now that hasn't spent that sum at the top of the top. That and it's not worked out. Even Liverpool have done that, but I do just look and again. where I sit and I look at the City team, you talk about you need about 4 players. Again, I go back to, Mendy has been injury prone since you got him. It's not news that, you're not going to get a full season out of him, or you can't bank on it. Diaz and Laporte, I think, will be fine at centre back this year. But again, your midfield, Gundogan and Rodri, you knew Silva was going, you knew Sane had gone. And I think the next one, I really rate Gabriel Jesus. We've talked about him quite a lot on this pod. We're both big fans of him, but he's another player that's injury prone. And with Aguero turning, is he 33 now? And again, having injury issues of his own, I think you really should have been looking at potentially finding another striker soon as well. Because if Gabriel Jesus gets injured now, you're in trouble and you're going to have to start fiddling around, playing Torres or Sterling up front. I don't know. I just look at it just doesn't look like the plan is working at the moment for Pep, and it's hard to sort of imagine what it looks like ideally for him right now. That's what I would say.
Yeah. I think you're right in what you're saying, and it does take sort of midfielders from like the Spanish league a year or so to settle in. And I am willing to sort of give Rodri time. He's young, he's 23, and he has shown glimpses. Being a good player a couple of times last season. He got man of the match this season, I think, against Sheffield United. There's a lot of times he's trapped back and picked the ball back, which has looked Fernandinho-like. And it probably does take time to learn the pace of the league. So I agree with you, but I am willing to give him time. We can't go around replacing a 60 million defensive mid. Again, I don't think he was our first choice in the transfer market. I think originally we went for Jorginho from Napoli.
Yeah, it's true that. Yeah.
And he went. True, yeah. He went to Chelsea. But having watched him, I don't think he'd have been the solution either. So
definitely not.
No, you're right in what you're saying. We do need a striker. Even if Gabriel Jesus was fit, we can't just have one striker and we obviously can't count on Aguero because he'll be gone in a year or so. I think we're looking at Martinez.
I think this is sort of Kieron's point, isn't it, to the lack of planning, because you've seen the exits of all the sort of core of that team, and not really replaced any of them, to be honest. The centre back pairing of Laporte and Diaz looks good for now. Whether it'll pan out over the course of the season, we don't know, but it's the closest you've looked to replacing Kompany since he's gone. But again, as we've alluded to, no David Silva replacement, no Derek Sané replacement. Can they line somebody up to replace Aguero? Remains to be seen, but that is where the holes lie. I do agree with what Kieron's saying there.
No, I agree completely. I can't for the life of me think why we haven't signed a left back in the past sort of 3 or 4 transfer windows. First season we won the league with Pep. We had Fabian Delph at left back. The second season we had Zinchenko at left back. We've not had a left back since Pep came.
No. And that is sort of an adage to how good that those teams were, and are still, to a point that without a left back you can still function and be up there and challenging for league titles and domestic trophies.
Can I just jump in? Sorry, I do think that this is not to labour this point, but I do think that this is where Sir Alex Ferguson shown that he wasn't a fraud, in that when he wasn't. I'm telling you, he wasn't. No, obviously I don't have to justify it too much, but we had these squads and he was always looking ahead and he would always see these things coming. And this year, Liverpool, they're at the peak of their powers now. They just won the Champions League the year before last. They just won the Premier League, and they've had 2 95-plus point seasons. There's an argument for them saying, sort of settle what we've got. But the top clubs, they don't do that. They try and see the problems before they arrive. And they went for Werner, I think it was their first choice this summer, and didn't get him. And then they had the backup plan of signing Jota. And the beauty of signing Jota now, whilst you've still got Mane, Salah, both at the peak of their powers, is that you get to have him settle in for a year, get coached by the coaches, get into the rhythm, settle in with the squad, settle into the stadium when the fans come back in. And then you have that year then where you get to suss them out and see if they're right for the club. If they're not, then you've got that 1 year out of the way. Whereas with Rodri, if Rodri isn't going to step up next year, then that's 2 years you've lost, and then you're going to have to go and spend a lot of money to go and replace him. And I think that's what I would say is, as good as City have been under Pep, I sort of tongue in cheek when I was saying, that I'm not too concerned about Pep staying, because obviously, they've done excellent domestically. But if Pep goes at the end of that 3 years or before, it's not a given that the structure that's in place there is going to see City continue to, maintain constant attacks and trying to win the Premier League, because I do think obviously Pep does take this squad up a level. I do wonder what happens if he goes and then some of these other players that come in start to look a bit more ordinary, or you haven't got the added factor of having Pep there attracting top quality players. I don't know. I would be a little bit glass half empty about the future if I was a City fan right now. I'd be a little bit worried. With all that said, though, they'll probably get Messi next summer, and then they'll have two of the greatest years ever. So
let's hope not. Let's hope not.
I was going to mention Messi actually.
Yeah, let's just briefly talk Messi. I know we've gone a little bit long here, but that's perfectly fine. The chat today is that Messi's no longer on City's radar, but I can't help but thinking that's a little bit of poker bluffing and mind games from the Manchester City bunch. What do you think of that, James?
Yeah, I don't believe that at all. I think it's not even just a footballing decision. To sign Messi would commercially just take us to a new level.
More than anything else, really.
Yeah. Even if he was sat on the bench, or it's just like
Ferran Torres was keeping him out. Yeah,
it's just I think that transfer makes sense so much. It's just whether he wants to, really. It's not whether we want to. Messi decides where he goes.
Of course.
It's any club's going to have him. It's not. Oh no, we won't have him. We need another striker.
Yeah, exactly. If he's offered up to you, you're biting the hand off, aren't you? There's no debating it. So
yeah, exactly.
We've got fingers crossed here that it doesn't happen. But part of me, a very small part of me, but a part of me does want to see it happen, just to see him play in the league and compete against the best that this country's got to offer on a weekly basis. So very small part of me, as I say, but
maybe Ronaldo will go United as well.
Can you imagine that? The two old warriors battling it out at 36.
Yeah.
If it does happen, James, you'll be the first back on the podcast to discuss it anyway.
Yeah.
Kieron, anything else to add? Or are you happy to call the first half just about there?
No, I'm happy there. Like you say, fingers crossed Messi doesn't join, but I have to say I do think it is inevitable at this point. But yeah, there we go. That's me. Good to have James on, though.
Absolutely. Yeah, no problem. Kieron, we'll see you in part 2. But James, thanks so much for coming on and offering your opinions and your Manchester City insight in part 1. It's greatly enjoyed and appreciated. And you're welcome back anytime, of course.
Yeah, hopefully when I next come on, we've proved Kieron wrong.
Yeah, we'll get you on when you sort of riding a little bit higher in the table next time. So you got some cheery stuff to talk about. But James, thanks a lot.
Cheers. Thank you very much.
Thanks very much for listening to part 1. Stick around for part 2, where you'll get all of this. Welcome back to the second half of the Game of Two Halves podcast. Thanks for joining us in part 1. Thanks to James, of course, for coming on and being our guest for the first time. Thoroughly enjoyed it. We'll have to get him back, Kieron.
Yeah, for sure. He's a good guy, isn't he, James? And I expected him. I appreciate City on a bit of a tough spell at the minute. I expect him to be a bit more upbeat about City, but I suppose that's where they are right now.
I suppose so. Just to finish off before we get into the United chat in part 2, just to finish off on City, do you still think that they'll win the league based on your prediction past couple of programmes?
Gun to my head, I'd say yeah. I've been wrong about this before on the podcast. Last year, I famously backed City far too long, and I wrote off Liverpool until it. I didn't say it on the podcast, but privately I was saying that Liverpool might have screwed it. Before the restart, but so I'm always someone that is always looking for someone other than Liverpool to win it. But I mean, I still think that I just think there's a long season to come. I think that the teams that are ahead of them right now, I don't believe in any of them. I know Spurs and Chelsea have started well. See Villa, Everton. I don't believe in any of them to maintain it. I do think it is between City and Liverpool, and I just have to think that the injuries will catch up to Liverpool.
Well, that's fair, I suppose. I still think Liverpool will do it. I think they'll find a way to get over the line. But it's up for grabs, isn't it? I think we can say now it is a wide open race and it's up for grabs.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, the thing that is, you're perfectly right. Liverpool have got more reason to be optimistic about the start. They've definitely looked much better and much more convincing start of the season. Given the reaction, but to the players getting injured and the loss to Aston Villa early on. But I think we see it every year, don't we? That there's a team that will surprise everyone with a poor start, and then we write them off, and then lo and behold they come back into it and remind everyone.
It might be us. Might be United's time.
I'm not ready to say it on the podcast on wax yet, but
no. I don't.
There is part of me
slightly optimistic. I mean, if we win the games in hand and the result goes our way this weekend, we can be a couple of points off top. So you can't write us off, I suppose. I'm not confident, but you can't write us off. But speaking of United, let's get to the second half of the show. You'll notice I'm in a different shirt than the first half. That's because we're recording part 2 a couple of days after part 1. Peek behind a game of two halves curtain here, but James and myself and Kieron did part 1 on Sunday night. Part 2 is coming to you on Tuesday night, just after United have beaten Istanbul Başakşehir 4-1 at home in the Champions League. So we thought we were going to record Monday night, but we thought we'd just give it another night's grace, record and get the Istanbul game into our coverage of part 2, and do it tonight, so we can incorporate that in. So I'm happy to talk Istanbul right away, Kieron, if you are, whilst it's fresh. Obviously United beat West Brom in the league on Saturday evening, just a 0-0. It wasn't really an eventful game. We'll get to that afterwards, but whilst it's fresh in our minds, let's do Istanbul. 4-1 victory. Give us your initial thoughts and reaction on that.
Just professional win. I think the best thing about the situation we're in now under Ollie is that we're not a top team at the moment. Let's be clear. There's still a long way for us to go for us to become one of the best teams in the country, let alone in Europe. But I think that it's the 2 early wins in this group obviously set us up really nicely for this tournament. The loss to Istanbul felt like a reminder that we're not there yet. So they needed to perform tonight. They needed to get the win. They needed to get it done early, and they did. So I have to say I'm happy with that. Again, the thing about this group going into it was that I think the odds were sort of against us to get through it.
Yeah.
But we are now 4 games in. We're top. It could all go wrong, but as it stands, we should qualify now. And I think if we do, Ollie will deserve a lot of credit, because everyone that doesn't support Manchester United, and even some that do, and upset Mourinho got sacked, are quick to point out that we finished 3rd last year, but he spent a fair amount of money, and it was a distant 3rd.
It was a backdoor 3rd, wasn't it?
Yeah. So, and again, it's a completely fair argument, but I think the fact that we've turned ourselves into a team now that actually looks good in the top competition, Champions League, against good opposition, I think that's the real sign of how far we've come. Because I know people point to, we got a few results in the Mourinho, I think against Juve, off the top of my head. There'll probably be another I'm forgetting now, but but again, I think that was a lucky result. We've looked good, and we've looked like the better team in a lot of these games. So I think that's a sign that we are progressing. So again, fingers crossed we just get through the group. What did you make of it?
I'll get to the performance in a second. I'm just going to pick up on the point that fingers crossed we get through. I've got a feeling that defeat in Istanbul is going to come back to haunt us a little bit. We only need a point from either the PSG or the Leipzig game to get through, but it could easily go wrong. We've got PSG at home. We could lose that game quite easily. and Leipzig away, that's far from a guarantee. So quite quickly, you can see it turning around. It's far from a foregone conclusion, this. And I just think the naivety of that result in Istanbul might come back to bite us. But, that remains to be seen. We've probably given ourselves as good a chance as we could have. If you'd have told us beginning of the group that you'd need a point from the last two to get through, you'd have taken that. So I don't think we can be too disappointed. Swap the Istanbul defeat for a defeat against PSG and an Istanbul win. And you'd have gone, okay, well, that's probably fair. Lose in Paris, win both legs against Istanbul, and that's how you'd have hoped it would have gone. So, however you get the 9 points, we've got them from 4 games. We can't be too disheartened. But the performance tonight, the first half performance in particular, I thought was spectacular. We played with pace, intensity, aggression, creativity. I thought we could have scored 5 or 6, really. Flip side, we could have conceded as well. Istanbul created and gave as good as they got on the chance creation front. But I think Ole sort of threw caution to the wind a little bit with that setup. He knew that we didn't really need 2 holding midfielders. I know Van De Beek played a little bit deeper with Fred, but it was like a half position, really, wasn't it? It wasn't full blown sitting, and it wasn't, supporting every single attack. He's a bit of a half and half role that. I think Ole realised that we didn't need the 2 defensive midfielders, and maybe that's a stance that we could take against different teams at home as well. West Brom at home on Saturday, maybe we could have gone with 1 defensive midfielder instead of 2, or 1.5 as it turned out, and try and be a little bit more aggressive and on the front foot early, and get some early goals and open the game up, because you saw what the Fernandes early goal did in that game tonight. It forced Istanbul to come out and play football, and when they did, we were electric on the counter-attack. We could have scored 4 or 5 in that first half. It was just 3, but I thought we were excellent. Second half, obviously a few changes, necessary changes, a few putting some mileage back in the legs of Fernandes and Rashford. Unfortunate injury, I think it looks like, to Wan-Bissaka. Hopefully he'll recover and shake it off pretty quickly. I think Lindelof's still got his niggling back injury, but I think the commentators on BT Sport were sort of dressing it up as a bit of a nervy finish for United when it got to 3-1. I just didn't see it like that at all. I didn't think we were in any sort of trouble. It wasn't a panicky evening. They had a few decent efforts, Istanbul, but we were in complete control the whole time. And Solskjaer sticking Matic on, going to the 2 holding midfield, it killed the game, didn't it? It always felt like we could run up and get another goal whenever we needed to.
It definitely did, but I won't lie. I was worried once they got the goal.
Were you? Really?
Yeah, if they got a second, it would be just like us to.
Oh, I know, but
and they hit the bar, and had that gone in, and there were 10 minutes left, and they, were fighting for their lives, and we had to defend a lead, I would have been nervous. I won't lie.
Oh yeah, I wouldn't have backed us, but I think we were far enough.
Yeah, no, I wasn't too worried. Don't get me wrong, but no, I completely agree with you there. I think.
What did you make of Van De Beek? Because we've obviously had a difference of opinion on whether he can get into this team in that position.
Yeah, no, so I was just going to bring up that. I think that's probably the most interesting thing we could talk about on this podcast, because I think it probably is the one contention we've had privately. I think because you have talked before about potentially playing him as a centre midfielder, it's been something that I've always been a bit. I'm so on board with the Van De Beek sign, and I have to say that at the outset, I'm really behind it. I've been admiring him for a couple of years now, genuinely. I've got a friend called Josh Courtney, who I don't know if he's listening, but we've been big fans of Van De Beek for a couple of years now, and so we were delighted to sign him. Again, I have to say, I've said on the podcast, I do think that he was signed as Bruno's backup, because I think Ole does favour the 4-2-3-1, and I don't believe that in games where we're up against, decent opposition, you can really bank on Van De Beek as a centre mid, because as I said to you pre-game, I don't think it's just about his discipline. I do think that, he showed he was strong tonight. He won a few 50-50s. He was good with one-touch passes, which Elise does, and, turn defence into attack. And all those things are great. But I do think that physically, that's not really where you want him on the pitch. And I do think the best part of Van De Beek is his ability in and around the box and getting into the box. And I truly believe that's why we signed him. And I think that they probably took one look at our form when Bruno got tired towards the end of last year, knowing that they prefer Pogba as a number 8, and that you can't count on Pogba because he gets injured a lot. So I think that they just thought when they get him for 40 million, there was a window of opportunity. I think they go and get him. The game tonight, as you say, worked out well. I was surprised how much space Istanbul gave us. Particularly Bruno had, acres to play in, and he shown it early on.
How much of that owed to the early goal, though?
Well, yeah, no, a lot.
It forced the hand a little bit, didn't it? Fernandes scoring the goal he did.
And again, it's great when you win, and I'm all, I am always riding the wave whenever we're playing well. I'm never, I remember there was the opening spell under Ollie, and everyone was telling everyone we were outperforming against XG. But then last year we were underperforming against it, and I think it's a useful stat, but I don't want to. It takes the joy out of football for me, but I can see with my eyes often what the XG stat is trying to tell me. And again, I forgot the point I was. Oh no, so the game was open. There was plenty of room for Bruno to play. There was very little pressure on Van De Beek, and so he could play the way he played. I don't think that's where he's gonna be in our plans going forward.
It was the perfect game to sort of blood him a little bit in that position, knowing that there wouldn't be a great deal of defensive work that he'd need to do. And maybe Van de Beek playing alongside Fred was half the reason that Istanbul created as much as they did. We weren't as watertight defensively as we would have been with a different holding player on the pitch, but obviously that was a calculated risk that Solskjaer felt comfortable enough taking, knowing that we had the attacking firepower to outscore them, basically. But yeah, I thought I was happy to see him out there, and I was happy to see him given a chance, to prove what he can do. And like you said, his attacking transitions, we haven't seen that from a player in that position this season, because Fred, Matic, McTominay, they haven't got the range of passing that Van de Beek has in the vision. So Van de Beek was setting Bruno on his bike every time tonight, and that was good to see.
Which is what we saw Pogba do at the end of last year, wasn't it? When he played next to Matic. Again, just going back to that point, because I know it might sound mad to anyone listening, me analysing that side of the game and sort of talking myself out of Van de Beek playing there, because everybody knows I'm pro Pogba, and Pogba played perfectly well in that position, and he, I would agree with anyone who would say, well, Pogba's less likely to maintain possession in that area. Pogba's less likely to track back. Pogba's less likely to be disciplined, so on and so forth. And that is all true. But what Pogba is better at is being a bigger lad, which I know sounds sort of caveman-like, but it's a real thing. You want, your 6 foot plus players who are huge and are good in the air, who are strong. I'd like to see him hold on to the ball a bit more and not try and take players on when he's being doubled up. But that aside, on paper, he looks more like the type of player you would expect to see in that zone of the pitch. And I think Ollie does too, to be honest. I think it is just purely that Pogba's out. And I think the main reason, as you said, I think he saw it as a window of opportunity, because we should beat Istanbul at home. And we knew that they were probably going to try and sit back. I thought they were going to try and suffocate us and not give us any space, but they didn't do that. Or they weren't able to, maybe because of the early goal, would you say. But I think that I think it was mainly about rotation, him playing there. He wants to get in some minutes. He found a gap in a game that we thought we could win.
Yeah.
McTominay needs a rest. I know you didn't play last week, but I think he'll probably play on the weekend. Obviously, Pogba is resting still. Matic can't play, 2 games a week. So I think it was mainly about the rotation.
I agree. Yeah, no, I agree. I think so. And it was nice to see it. Edinson Cavani got his first start. What did you make of him?
He was pretty much excellent in everything that he did, except for when he put his foot to the ball.
Yeah.
Which, I've no problem with it. He runs hard. He does press. When we're off the ball, when we're on the ball, he makes all the right runs. Some of his, one-touch passes in and around.
His awareness is really good, isn't it? He knows where everybody is on the pitch.
Yeah, and I think as well, I think I was talking about the space Bruno had before. maybe I probably want to see it again before I give him too much credit. But you could maybe credit Cavani and some of his positioning and some of the runs he was making, to force some of the space that Bruno had in the box. Because I think the defenders are probably conscious that he was trying to get him behind more than Martial would. I love Martial and I still think he's a number 9, but as much as he should make those runs beyond the defenders, he doesn't all that often. He will sit and have his back to goal outside the box. Cavani will make the runs, and when so I think he asked different questions of centre backs, and I think that probably did buy Bruno an extra couple of yards, which is good for us on the night.
Yeah, 100%. If Martial is going to be our nailed on number 9 for the next 5 years, he's going to have to start making those runs, isn't he? He needs more variety in his strike play.
Yeah, he obviously it's an area of his game that he can improve. I do think that I don't think he'll ever be like Cavani or any traditional number 9 who plays for zones and positions and tries to take up spaces, which asks difficult questions of the centre backs. I think Martial's game is always going to be about his interplay, which he is good at and he doesn't get a lot of credit for, and his dribbling when he can front up a defender. We did that last year, and he got was it 17 goals and he missed 2 months. I keep shouting about it, but it did happen.
Yeah.
And it happened in a year where we were comfortable playing a style of football where that was his game. He wasn't being your typical striker. So I think that there's reason to believe that if he played 9 for us again all this year, which I do think he'll get less games there because of Cavani, and if I was Ollie, I would rotate and give Cavani good minutes there. But I think if he did play there this year, if we didn't have Cavani, he'd probably go and break 20 goals this year, just because A, he'd be another year older, and B, because we'd have Fernandes all year and now Van De Beek and hopefully Pogba back soon. So I don't think it's a real issue. There are different, there's all different types of players. Cavani makes those runs in behind the defender. Firmino makes the runs in and drags the defenders out. There's different types of ways of playing. So I don't think again, it would be good for him to improve. There's a moment against West Brom where we were 1-0 up and the ball came to, I think, Cavani, and there was 2 of them versus the one West Brom defender. And there's a really simple run for Martial to make into the space. Cavani can lay it off and it's a one-on-one with the keeper. And Martial, he's not alive to it. And again, it's not his game. He could do that more and he'd score an awful lot more goals. But that said, I don't think it's an issue. I think he's still going to be a 20-goal-a-season player when he gets a full year with a proper midfield, which this year we should have.
Yeah, I hope you're right. I know you've placed a lot of faith in his stock, so I hope for your sake that it is right. But it's nice to have different options, isn't it? It's something we've not really had for the past few years. Martial could play left, he could play right at a push. We had Rashford on the right tonight, Cavani down the middle. Mason Greenwood can play any of those 3 positions. It's really nice to have that rotation on demand, really, and we can play any combination of the 3 or even possibly a 4, all 4 of them at once, if the situation dictates. So something we've not really had at any point for the past 5 years.
We are really spoiled for choice there. Having Martial, Rashford, Greenwood, and now Cavani is a bit like what we thought we had when we had Di Maria, Rooney, Falcao, Van Persie.
It is, yeah.
It didn't really work. There was some, the players there at the back end of their careers, and they'd all set in, the type of players they were, and none of them complemented each other really. Whereas this lot, they're still figuring that out, and I think that the addition of Cavani, the best thing about it, no matter what he does this season, will be the way in which he impacts Rashford, Martial, and Greenwood, in helping them find themselves as players, because they're up again. It's easy to forget how young they all are. Martial's just turned 25 this year, which isn't that young on paper, but for a player like him, he lost a year under Mourinho. he's still got a lot to give, and I think he will improve as he plays more games because it's easy to forget how many games he's missed over the last few years. Rashford is 22, isn't he?
Yeah.
He can only get better. And yeah, Greenwood, I don't even know what the limit is for him. So, but again, at this moment, it's just hard. Rashford played on the right tonight, and I thought he looked well, and I thought the attack looked good. But
it's hard to use tonight's game as a measuring stick, though, of whether or not he can play on the right, isn't it?
100%. I mean, he came off the right a little bit in his first year. But the point I was going to make was, in 3 years, it'd be really hard to guess, I think, and get it right where each, what position or part of the field each of those three players is going to take up. Maybe Greenwood stays on the right because he can cut in on his left or his right. Maybe
I hope he doesn't.
I will say this, Sean, and Greenwood, if he wants to go into that central role, I do think he has to get better in the air because people say what they want about Martial. Martial's scored a fair few headers.
He has. Yeah,
good ones as well. Greenwood's poor in the air, and I think if he does want to play in that central role, he's going to have to add that to his game.
Yeah, because you need to be able to score goals in the middle of the net, between the goalposts, between the posts.
Yeah. I think as well, there's an argument. Again, I like you do see him playing more of a central role than he is now, but you could argue that maybe that position really suits him because it gives him a chance to dribble a little bit in front of player up and get one-on-one with the defender, which you won't get as often in the central role. And when he is in those scenarios, it's, it feels like it's, going to be a goal every time, to be honest, to fans. So
my biggest fear is us wasting his talent out on the wing. I'd like to see him just get some minutes up front, as in down the middle. I don't see it happening this season. I think Martial and Cavani will, occupy that middle centre forward space. But I would like to see him get minutes down the middle, just to see what he's got, just to have a look at him.
Yeah, I think he'll get those minutes as well. I mean, we've got options there, like we've been talking about, but there's going to be plenty of games this year to rotate and try different things out, or even if it's in the last half hour of game, game we're winning. So I think we'll see that at some point.
Yeah. Another penalty tonight. There was one on Saturday again against West Brom. Fernandes gave this penalty away to Rashford when he was on a hat-trick. Gave away his first hat-trick chance for the club. Not really sure why, but he said against Everton he doesn't mind who gets the goals. Rashford put the penalty away. I don't suppose it's too big of a deal, but I'd like to have seen him take it and score it, I'll be honest.
Yeah, I was gutted. I was trying to figure out what's the quickest hat-trick in the Champions League. I'm sure it wouldn't have been tonight had he got that penalty. I'm sure probably Ronaldo's done it in 15 minutes or something like that. But
it would have been 32 minutes, wouldn't it, if he'd have scored it?
Yeah, it would be in the conversation, wouldn't it? It'd be in the top few. If I
remember Lewandowski getting, was it 5 or was that in the Bundesliga?
No, I think you might be right, actually.
It's been done quicker, but your point is it wouldn't have been far off.
No, 100%. Well, no. I mean, how often can that really happen?
Yeah.
Really and truly. So, yeah, no, I was disappointed he gave it away too, but it does speak to his character that, he's quite happy to. I suppose as well, he's missed a couple now. I know he scored the retake, but I suppose from his perspective, maybe he's thinking, I might miss, so maybe it's time to pass them up. I don't know, but
he'll still be taking them. If we get one,
I think so for FPL reasons. But,
so do I. But if he gets one on Sunday, he'll take it.
I think if it was 0-0, he takes that every
100%.
time. I think he backs himself. The best thing about Bruno is it's not the best thing about him. The best thing about him is his 2 feet, but his character. I don't know if I sound like Brendan Rodgers now, but it's a real thing. He's a proper. The difference he's made in this team since he's come in is, Cantona-esque.
It is Cantona-esque, absolutely.
I like that.
Just to rewind, mention the penalties there. Just to rewind to the West Brom game just quickly. Taylor, 2 penalties really, wasn't it, that game? The penalty given for West Brom that was then overturned, and then the one virtually right up the other end and given and missed and retaken and scored for Bruno Fernandes. Let's just go over that quickly. Did you think West Brom deserved a penalty?
I didn't think it was a foul, but I do think that had I been a West Brom fan, I would be annoyed at the decision just because it wasn't a clear and obvious mistake, and that is supposed to be the threshold to overturn these decisions.
I thought it was a clear and obvious mistake. I thought that he got the ball first, and then flipped the man.
He did make contact with his leg, and you could make a good argument that in doing so, it doesn't. I know we've said in the past that if you get the ball, it's sort of game over, but it's not 100% clear he gets the ball before he makes an impact with the player, just because not just the legs, but I think the hit. So if I was a West Brom fan, I would have been disappointed, but as a United fan, I'll sit here all day and say that I don't think it was a pen, because I didn't.
All right, so let's just put a bow on the last. We talked the Everton game in the last podcast, but the last two performances from United, it's 3 wins in a row. It's 2 home wins in a row, which is quite important considering the Old Trafford start. Where do you think United are right now?
I mean, they're exactly where they are on the table, aren't they? But I do think that it does look like the momentum's building again. I've said before, we've got a good. We had a tough start fixture-wise, not just the games, but I'm not going to go on about it again. But the schedule and the lack of pre-season. But we've now got a bit of an opening where we've got a few weeks before we play another one of the typical top 6 teams. Southampton's not going to be easy, but we should win. If we want to be where we want to be. And I do think that some of the key players are starting to click now. I think Maguire's looked a lot better recently. And, what we've learned when he's in form, we do tend to keep quite a lot of clean sheets in games that we're not necessarily expecting to. Bruno looks about as good as he has since he signed now. The game against Everton was excellent. Tonight he was excellent. Wasn't that good against West Brom, but he got the game winner.
Still the best player.
Yeah. And I think that, Tellez is coming into the team now. I think that's actually going to be really big for us. There's a lot of reasons to be hopeful, I think.
De Gea looks somewhat solid as well, doesn't he?
Oh, yeah, it's got to be. I know some people, Robbie Savage, will be really critical of the goal that he conceded tonight, but I can see the argument for what it's a game of numbers. De Gea's made a calculated gamble there, and it's not paid off. But again, we won 4-1, so I'll move on. But it wasn't one of the big blips that he's had, where you
still saved it. It was just a second late. That's all.
Yeah, I'd say it's a big deal though if he is going to be in better form this year, because we finished 3rd last year, as I say, with 66 points, I think it was, but we'd have finished with a lot more if De Gea had been anything like his normal self. And I say normal self, I'm talking like 3 years ago now, but he does look more like that De Gea than the one we've seen the last 2 years. So that'll be worth a few points if he does maintain it. I will say though, I don't really trust it, because I do just think he's one blip away from falling back into the trap he did last year. But with that said, now we've got Dean Henderson there if it does happen. I do think that if it goes that direction, maybe De Gea makes 2 errors. I think Ollie will pull the trigger, to be honest, and give Henderson a run.
It's just, it's putting somebody just at the side of his eye, isn't it? Just giving him something to think about, and somebody looking over his shoulder a little bit. Maybe it's just lit a fire under De Gea, just a bit of competition. People are saying that he's a lot more vocal in games now Henderson's arrived at the club that they've not seen before. I say arrived at the club, obviously he's been here a while, but coming back from Sheffield United, that, a little bit of vocal leadership from De Gea is something we haven't really seen. So if that is the case, and I can't speak to that personally, but if that is the case, then that's a good sign as well.
Yeah. A lot of people saying this. I'm big on competition for places, obviously, for obvious reasons. The more good players we've got, the better. But I will say I was a bit nervous that actually competition for De Gea might actually be a bad thing. So I thought it might actually
spook him a little bit.
Yeah, exactly, a little bit more. But whatever's happened at the minute, he does look back to his normal. So I think the fact that he's had a break, at the end of last year, we were in a bit of good form last year, and I think we've come into this season, and I think he just made a few good early saves.
PSG
games, and it does that for people. So, the longer it goes on, the better. But if we play Southampton, It's Southampton we got next, isn't it? If we play them next and he makes an error, then I'll be really fearful for the next few games. And because I do think that is a potential reality that we should be cautious of.
I agree. Anything else to add on the United chat?
No, really hope Wan-Bissaka isn't injured because much as it would be nice to see Brandon Williams get a few games, I do think he will be better at right back because obviously I talk about all the time I don't like right-footed left backs, but I think we are starting to look more like a proper team now, and I think the closer we get to picking our best 11, the closer we get to finding out what that is, which is what the reason we were doing so well at the end of last year is because Solskjaer was picking his best 11 every week because he knew exactly what it was, the better. So if Wan-Bissaka is out for a bit, I know he's not everyone's cup of tea, but defensively he's a big deal for us. So I hope he comes back fit, and I hope that we just keep grinding out results if that's what it takes for now.
Absolutely. It's at the stage where performance is a secondary and results are first and foremost, and that's what happened on Saturday against West Brom. I wasn't bothered that it wasn't pretty. It was 3 points, and that's what we need to get up the table. Kieron, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate your contributions.
And thanks, James.
I was getting there, but you've been.
I know you were, but I wanted to say it.
Yes, thanks to James Martin for joining us for the first half of this week's podcast. Thoroughly enjoyed it. Something we'll have to do again. It was good to get a different perspective on all things Manchester City. And obviously, James is welcome back anytime. But thank you for joining us for part 2 on a different evening. Appreciate your time once again. And thank you for you at home for listening and watching the podcast every single week, which we're really grateful that you do. This has been episode 6. If my mind's not playing tricks on me, I've got it wrong the last few weeks, but I think we're up to something like 35 or 36 episodes all in all now, which is the most I've ever done for a podcast. And I've had a couple of different incarnations, so I'm really proud of this. We're doing really well. We're trying to improve week on week, so thank you for sticking with us, and thanks for your patience and everything that we're trying to do. We hope it's working out. Follow us on social media. We're on Instagram, we're on Twitter, Facebook, we're Zip Sports Media. ZipSportsMedia.com is the website. Available on YouTube, iTunes, Spotify, all good podcast providers. This has been episode 6. Join us next week for episode 7 of season 3 of the A Game of Two Halves podcast.